As you know, John, there are so many people in this game who love golf, who believe in it, who want to share it with as many people as possible. And so these people are willing to, offer their time because they really believe in the power of the game to change people's lives. And so it wasn't a tough sell. These are exciting projects with interesting pieces of ground or histories. And yeah, we're very fortunate. I think obviously, what's interesting is when these courses were built back in the 1920s, the architects that were hired were the best in the game. No doubt, a master of the golden age. And we're very fortunate to be able to have some of the best people working today, if not ever, to be helping us with rehabilitating these projects.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Fiella, and welcome to another episode of the Golf Sustainability Podcast. We've got a unique and I think very important conversation planned today, as my guest is Will Smith, co-founder of the National Links Trust. They've got a very, very ambitious and innovative project in place to re-energize municipal golf in the Washington, D.C. region. He's also co-founder of the Outpost Club, which is a golf society that I'm actually a very proud member of. You can read Will's full bio in the show notes. I'd like to get right into the conversation, so details on his bio will be in the show notes, and he's got a really interesting background, so please make sure to check it out. Will, welcome to the Golf Sustainability Podcast.
John, thanks for having me.
I'm fascinated by the story of NLT. For those that may not be familiar with it, please give us an overview of the National Links Trust and the elements of your project in the Capital Region.
Well, I'll try to keep it brief because it's sort of it's a bit, as you mentioned, it's a big project, an ambitious project. But National Links Trust is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission is to positively impact communities through affordable and accessible golf. Golf has been such a huge part of my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today without it. I want to share that with as many people as possible, and this is my sort of way of giving back. And so I'll give you a little bit of the background. In Washington, D.C., there are 3 public golf courses. Each of them have incredible stories. They're historical. They're owned by the National Park Service. They sit on federal land, and for decades and decades, they'd been operated under a concessionaire contract, which sort of prevented any long-term capital improvements. So there's been just decades and decades of deferred maintenance. In the 2010s, it's crazy to think because it's now sort of 10 years ago when the process started. The National Park Service recognized that this concessionaire contract wasn't the way forward, that they needed to change the way they operated or managed these golf courses so that someone could actually make these investments that these courses really needed. So they put out an RFP in July of 2019, for someone to come in and operate these golf courses and do things differently. Mike McCartan and I, my co-founder, we started NLT about this time, and I won't get into too many details, but Mike did his thesis at the University of Georgia, his master's thesis on East Potomac, Haynes Point, one of the courses here in D.C., and really got to the bottom of its incredible history, which was a reversible Walter Travis. And so Mike was sort of keeping an eye on all these golf courses for a long time. And when we heard that this RFP was coming down the pike, we decided that we wanted to do something. And it started out as small as sort of starting a social media account and trying to tell the stories of these places so that whoever came in would respect the histories and really not just sort of treat them as blank slates. And then we realized there was another group that was looking at it. We approached them about maybe partnering and helping them and using our decades of experience in the golf world to try to help them make sure the right thing happened at these. And we were rebuffed. And so then we realized pretty quickly that if we wanted to make sure that the histories of these places were respected and that the communities that currently use them continued to be able to use them, that they remained affordable and accessible, that we might have to do it ourselves. And so we rolled up our sleeves and in the fall of 2019 started to put together our proposal. It was due the Wednesday before Thanksgiving 2019. That got pushed, luckily, to the end of February 2020. along with some other volunteers, we were able to put together what we thought was a pretty compelling proposal. We were able to partner with Troon as part of our proposal, and we had the support of some of the best golf course architects in the world. Gil Hance signed on to do Rock Creek pro bono, which is a William Flynn. Tom Doak signed on to do the reversible Walter Travis at East Potomac. Bo Welling signed on to do Langston, and so we thought we had a really strong proposal. And then obviously 2 weeks after we handed it in, the world changed, and we had no idea what was gonna happen. And so I'm going on too long, but this is the backstory. And we got word that the Park Service was going to make a decision, and we heard in June of 2020 that we were chosen to negotiate a long-term lease. And in October of 2020, we signed a 50-year lease to operate and rehabilitate the 3 public golf courses in Washington, D.C. And here we are, 4+ years later, and we're on the precipice of starting our first big project, which is the rehab of Rock Creek Park. It's been a grind, and it will continue to be a grind. This is certainly a labor of love, but Mike and I and the team that we've assembled really are passionate about affordable and accessible golf and the difference it can make in people's lives.
Yeah, fascinating. So the government actually put out an RFP, and then you and Mike, you'd known one another previously, so you guys were already friends. And
yeah, we went to the University of Georgia together, did our graduate schools there, so we'd known each other for 20, or at that point about 15 years. So we go way back, and we both were in the golf industry, in the golf design and construction industry. Both had spent time working for Tom Doak. I'm not sure we were ever on the same project, but we were certainly sort of hanging out with the same people and stayed very close friends for 15 years before we launched NLT.
Interesting. So you were able to leverage your contacts and your connections in the industry to put together a compelling program. I mean, to have Gil Hance and Tom Doak both working on this. Who did you say was the third designer?
Bo Welling.
Bo Welling. Okay, yeah. That's quite a lineup.
As you know, John, there are so many people in this game who love golf, who believe in it, who want to share it with as many people as possible. And so what Gil did at the park, these people are willing to offer their time because they really believe in the power of the game to change people's lives. And so it wasn't a tough sell to get Gil and Tom signed on, and Bo. These are exciting projects with interesting pieces of ground or histories. And yeah, we're very fortunate. I think obviously, what's interesting is when these courses were built back in the 20s, certainly Rock Creek and East Potomac, the architects that were hired were the best in the game, right? William Flynn, a master of the golden age. Walter Travis, underappreciated, but no doubt a master of the golden age. And we're very fortunate to be able to have some of the best people working today, if not ever, to be helping us with rehabilitating these projects.
Yeah, it's interesting because in looking at a number of these projects, these restoration and renovation projects that are taking place at munis, you find that some of the top architects of the day were in fact involved with them. You think about Cobbs Creek, which is an example. And so it's really fascinating. So in addition to the restoration of the courses, are there any other elements to what you're planning for the collective project with NLT?
Yeah, John, in many ways, the golf courses are the least of it. One of the things that we've set out to do is try to help reimagine what a municipal golf course can be or should be. And it already is in a lot of places, but they aren't. This isn't the narrative that's out there, both in the golf world and certainly outside of it, which is these are community centers. This isn't just about the 9 holes or the 18 holes. It's about the clubhouse. It's about the experience. It's about offering a nice place for a family to come and sit outside and have a hamburger and a beer and wine for the parents. And so, we're looking at these holistically and not just about the golf. And so our first project at Rock Creek, and again, this podcast has got sustainability in the title. I mean, these places need to be sustainable, and that is both environmentally, economically, and the social element as well. And so, at Rock Creek, there's never been a driving range. Our plan is to introduce a 50-stall driving range that will really kind of be the backbone of the financial model. We've seen it at East Potomac where there's 100 stalls. We're very fortunate to be in this position where when we took over, these golf courses were profitable and decently profitable because the driving range at East Potomac is such a moneymaker. It allows us to go ahead and do these projects in some form or fashion. And so the introduction of a driving range at Rock Creek will be the financial backbone. Will allow us to then put money aside to manage the ecosystem that is Rock Creek is in Rock Creek Park, which is one of the great urban parks in America. But for decades and decades, nothing had been done to manage the forest that kept encroaching on the golf course. And just this winter, we've removed, I think, 13 acres of invasive vines and shrubs. We've taken out a good number of invasive trees, and the revenue from the driving range when it gets built will help us be able to keep those invasives at bay, and do so many other things, like introduce our Jack Vardaman workforce development program that we currently have running at Langston. But a vibrant Rock Creek will then allow us to have the activity there that will support that initiative, would allow us to do outreach to some of the more underserved communities that are immediately adjacent to Rock Creek, and try to introduce people to the game of golf that have never felt welcomed or never even realized that what it was, or that it was adjacent to their homes and apartments, and that they're welcome there. So yeah, I mean, we're looking at this very holistically. It's not just about, the headlines are Gil Hanse and Tom Doak, but in reality, it's so much more. And it's really rewarding. I mean, to get up and work on this every day and try to really change the path of what these facilities are doing, and make them more of a community asset for everybody, not just golfers.
Yeah, well, this will be an important part of your and Mike's legacy for sure. Interesting to hear about the business model, that the ranges are an important economic driver. Do you have plans to put either Top Tracer or TrackMan?
Yeah, we already have Top Tracer at East Potomac and Langston, and you can certainly see, we have data from before and after, and it's been a huge hit at both places. The revenues have gone up, and yeah, and we'll have technology at Rock Creek.
Great.
Someone who's got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, I can personally attest to the sort of power of the gamification of driving ranges. And, I'm not a driving range guy. I don't practice very much. I like to play, but being able to take my kids to the driving range at East Potomac and introduce them to the game by the driving range there, and seeing how they get excited by, there's a Go Fish game where they hit the balls and they get different points for each fish that they catch by hitting the golf balls. And then my son, is really into the long drive, and so every time we go down, he puts on the long drive, and we know what he tracks it, right. So like the last time we were down there a couple of weeks, and it's been so miserable here in DC this winter, but we haven't been able to go as much as we would like. But he hit it 161 yards with a 141-yard carry, and next time we go down, he'll try to beat that, and that's really good. That's so much better than just sort of beating balls, especially as a young kid, and not really getting any feedback. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. On a previous episode, I had a conversation with Don Ray, who, in addition to now being president of the PGA, he also has his own golf course that he owns and operates. And installing Top Tracer at his facility was transformative. It 10x'd the revenue on the range. Food and bev went up commensurately because people are eating and drinking.
Yeah.
So sounds like very, very exciting component of this plan. You talked about putting the team together, and I'd like to understand that in a little more detail. How'd you go about building a team? There's you and Mike that start out. You've referenced Troon. How'd you go about putting a team together?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Troon, right? So as we were going through this process, and I sort of laid out that there were, another group that was looking at doing it. We talked to the big management companies, and I won't name any names, but Troon was the first one who sort of made the commitment and said, "We believe in you guys. We believe in your vision." And so for us at that point, it was a no-brainer. And Tim Shantz and the rest of the team at Troon, they've been great partners now, going back to before we started operating, really. So can't say enough good things about Troon. And so that was sort of a no-brainer for us, and it's been a wonderful relationship. Again, we got very fortunate. There were some people who are here in DC who love golf, who had really good experience, people with MBAs who sort of approached us that we got introduced to, that we're very, very fortunate to have as part of the team. That's how we started building it, is that people came to us who were passionate about what we were trying to do. And then we did put out, and I can't even remember if we did it just through social media or we used one of these, Indeed. I don't want to give any free ads, but
Right.
And we got great responses, and we, with our board, took our time finding our sort of leadership team. But it is amazing that the key, I think, for us, right, is that every single person that is currently on the NLT team is someone who is passionate about affordable and accessible golf and the impact it can have on people's lives. No one's doing this as a job. And I mean, everyone's doing it as a job because they're getting paid and this is how they make their living, but they're doing it because they really care about the mission. And when you have that, you can get so much more done than you could if it was just someone kind of punching a clock. And, I think those people exist all over the golf world. And for anyone in a community that would think about trying to do something like this, like, there are going to be people who can't even imagine how fortunate they would be to do this, to be able to work on a project where they really feel like they're making a difference in their community.
Yeah. I've talked to Tim at Troon about this topic, and he has that passionate belief that munis are a critical element to really broadening access to the game.
It's good business, Sean. It's good business. I've said this over and over again. I think all of Troon manages golf courses all the way up and down the sort of golf ecosystem to, the $20 muni to the super high end private course, and it's a funnel, right? If people can't get into the game for less than $20, $30, $40 a round, the average person is going to walk away. There needs to be an affordable on ramp to the game, and that's where the munis really, really shine. And Tim Shantz is a smart guy. This is not just about business for him,
Right.
but it is, right. Like it is still it is, and I think all of these high end resorts, ought to be supporting municipal golf, because the customer at Pinehurst didn't start out playing Pinehurst. They started out playing at East Potomac. They started out playing at Rock Creek. And yeah, I truly believe that this game, if there isn't more done to support affordable, accessible golf, especially in urban areas, this game will get smaller and smaller, and more elite. I think the elitist label it is something that's used against the golf industry and is not really representative. But if affordable urban golf courses go away, then it will start to trend that direction. And that's not a game that I personally want to have dedicated my life to and have my kids get involved in as well. So.
Yeah, amen. Well, listen, I agree with and believe in wholeheartedly what you've just shared, and part of what I'm trying to do with the podcast is really to get others to kind of emulate what you're doing. It's interesting in hearing you talk, Will. It's what you and Mike provided was leadership in the community that allowed you to tap into others who had the passion to restore muni golf, and you've really been able to bring that together. And I guess it's that leadership piece that's really, really key, because it sounds like the interest on the part of people in the industry is out there. What they need is an initiative to become a part of. So you've got this team together. You can't do this without a lot of money. And I know how much the park raised, and there was a senior exec in the industry who passed the hat and raised $50 million, which is an exorbitant amount of money that I'm not sure is necessary for all restoration projects.
And to be clear, a good chunk of that money was to start an endowment that will make sure that there's money for maintenance as well as their community programming. So I always, it's an incredible number. I wish we could pass the hat and sort of snap our fingers and raise $55 million. But I also feel like they kind of get a bad rap because it's not like they spent $55 million on the golf course. That's not accurate. So.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That's a very important clarification. So, how did you determine how much you needed? How's it going? What have been some of the challenges associated with raising funds to execute the vision?
Yeah. Well, when we did our proposal, right, this was in 2019, Mike and I have experience in the golf course construction industry and contacts, and work with people like Jim Wagner to come up with a reasonable number for the golf course renovations. That part was easy. The building stuff was a little bit tougher. We obviously talked to builders and contractors to try to get some sort of estimate on what it would cost to redo these golf courses. And then, by the time we entered our proposal in March or in February 2020 to kind of even October of 2020 when we signed the lease, prices were skyrocketing. And so what we believed would be sort of the overall number that we would need to spend to do these projects doubled at least, if not went higher. And for us, it's like, okay, as we dive in, we refine our designs and work with builders and cost estimators to try to figure out what this thing's going to cost. And we made some choices at Rock Creek because the initial numbers came in too high, and we just realized that it wasn't sustainable to spend that amount of money. Even though we're trying to do this by doing it through philanthropic means, where people are donating money, and we're not looking for a return. We're not looking to, the key to this is by doing it through philanthropic means, you do not need to jack the greens fees at the end, because you're not looking for that profit motive. We want to make sure that these golf courses are self-sufficient, that each one of them is making a profit, or at least throwing off enough money that we can then reinvest that money into things like forest management or keeping a healthy capital reserve, so that when things invariably do break, or 20, 30 years when you need to do a big refresh, that we have those resources handy. So, yeah, I mean, we did the best we could. Those numbers have clearly changed since 2019, and we'll continue to refine them as we go. But, for us, the key thing is to be smart with the money and make sure that we're creating a model at each one of these facilities that will be able to generate enough cash that we can continue doing the programming and environmental stuff that we think is essential to having these places be really, really great community assets.
Yeah. So hopefully someone's listening to this episode and they're saying, hey, I'd like to do that in my community. What tip or pointers would you have for someone about this fundraising piece who was interested in trying to raise funds for a project in their community?
Yeah, John, that's tough, man. I wouldn't say it's been harder than we thought, but it's been tough, right? It's first, it's if you can figure out a way to get your nonprofit status. So I would try to find a lawyer who's willing to do the work pro bono to file those papers and come up with a mission statement that will work. We were very fortunate early on that we were able to do that, and so that certainly makes things easier. But you could also figure out a nonprofit that already is in existence that has a similar mission that you might be able to work with, and so there's that. But and it really is, the incredible thing about the age that we live in now is through social media, that it's really easy to reach people. And so it sounds silly, but start a social media account and start providing some content about maybe not what your vision is, but what important places these are. And it's amazing how many people will find you. We were very fortunate back in 2019 to be introduced to people, but also people reaching out through our minimal social media and saying they wanted to help. And so the amount of volunteer hours that were needed to complete the RFP, it was hundreds of hours that we worked on this thing. We couldn't have done it if it was just Mike and myself. And we had guys like Steve Sayre and Brian McKeon and Gerald Androli who spent, hours and hours of their lives helping us. And so, again, it's if you're playing at that municipal golf course, or you're part of a community golf scene, like it's amazing how quickly it can and sort of coalesce. But the fundraising is tough, and it's not something that any of us had really ever done before on any large scale. And we've worked with a number of different consultants. We've brought everything in-house now. It's tough, but start with golf events, start with things that are sort of tangible. We started selling head covers way back when, and you start to build a database of people who care, and you build off of that. And 5 years in, I'm still shy about asking people for money, but you got to get used to asking people for money and having people say no, and just get back up and keep doing it.
Great tips and great insight. I mean, a natural follow-up question to that is, what would you say have been kind of the biggest lessons learned? If you were to do this all over again, what might you do differently?
Yeah, I mean, we learn lessons every single day, and I think for the most part, I'm not sure there's like any big giant lessons. It's been a lot of small lessons every single day. Our project is somewhat unique in that we are dealing with the National Park Service. We're dealing with the federal government. Most people would be dealing with their local community person. I will say, and we've done a lot of outreach and tried to share knowledge with people and learned a lot. I think getting the government entity that you're dealing with on board as early as possible, finding an ally in that space. I know our life has been, at the Park Service, there's people, incredibly passionate civil servants who, each have their ideas about what should be the most important thing at these facilities. And we've been very fortunate to find people who have shared our vision, and I think that's really important. So big lessons, I'm not 100, other than just, it's not easy. Like, that's the big lesson.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's like, it's a grind. It really is a grind.
Yeah. Well, listen, you've got to put together a constellation of people that are really key to make this happen. And I like the way you reference you're trying to share information with others who are interested in doing the same thing, which gives us a great transition to the broader topic that I want to discuss, because you've given a lot of great insight specifically on NLT. But this really is a much broader opportunity, and you're a visionary on this, and you've already made several comments around it. But when you look at things like Cobbs Creek in Philly and the park in West Palm, which is 20 minutes from where I live, they're all focused on creative models to try to expand the value of municipal golf and really driving benefits for the broader community, which you touched on, which I think is the big opportunity. What do you think is behind this broader trend, and why is it important?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we've talked a little bit about why it's important, how essential these pathways to the game are, and how municipal golf courses can and should be so important to building new golfers and people who are passionate about the game. I think for so long, I mean, the people who grew up at these places are now getting up older, who are becoming in the golf industry, and so I think, when you have a guy like Matt Ginella talking about Winter Park 9 and really helping, I think it's just people who are passionate starting to realize how important these places are, and being able to tell those stories in a way that gets other people excited to help their local community. And so I think, you've sort of referenced, like, there isn't a national organization that is tying all of this together. We hope at National Links Trust to be that organization. We obviously have a huge lift in front of us in DC, so we haven't devoted a ton of our resources to that. But while, the PGA of America and the USGA, incredible organizations, but that's not why they exist. It's not to protect affordable and accessible golf and help communities improve their facilities. We think we can be that down the road. And and again, as you mentioned these projects, right? Cobb's Creek and the park, those are sort of the high end Cadillac versions, but there are so many other versions like Winter Park 9 where they spend, I think, 1.8 million bucks or something all in. What Bruce Hepner's doing in Nashville, where he's spending a couple $1,000,000 and really making big differences in the municipal golf courses there. These are all stories that need to be shared, that people need to know about, that people who are looking to do other projects in their own communities should have knowledge of, and it shouldn't be as siloed as possible. And there should be a repository where someone can say, like, and we'd love to get there at some point, where people can say, all right, well, we've got flooding issues, and here are 4 different things, and you could enter them, and they'd be like, all right, well, this is the project that you need to look at, and here are the people that you could reach out to get even more information. And it's really exciting to see how many people across the country are passionate about these issues. And we get incoming calls every day, maybe not every day, but every week, from a community saying, hey, can you help us? And we would love to be able to help us with help them with more resources, but obviously we got our hands full here in DC. But we've done some things, and we'll keep trying to do more.
Yeah, that's interesting. Your ability to help others will certainly be enhanced by the work that you're doing in the DC region. Although, ironically, the work you're doing in the DC region holds you back a little bit from doing more nationally. But I'll tell you what, based on what I've read in this conversation, you're clearly the guy to lead this national movement. And,
well, I don't know if it's me, but I'm happy. I'm honored to be part of it. We look at what we're doing. We're stewards of these places, and there needs to be a steward for the game, affordable, accessible golf nationally. And we hope that we can help. One of the we're doing things now that are, so we think, cost effective, that don't take up a lot of our time and resources. We host a quarterly webinar where we bring in people like Steve Leary and the team from Winter Park, and talk about that experience. We bring in operators who are doing creative things to drive traffic to their golf courses, both golfers and non-golfers. We talk about things that are important to municipal golf. And so there's that, and we try to share that knowledge as wide as possible. We've also hosted a number of national symposiums here in Washington, D.C., where we've brought in stakeholders from across the industry who care about municipal golf and affordable and accessible golf. Last year, we did a regional one we partnered with the Massachusetts Golf Association, where people could made it a lot easier for people to come and have a day where they learned about a lot of these issues and learned about solutions. And we hope to do similar stuff with the Southern California Golf Association maybe later this year. And hopefully have another national symposium here in the next couple of years back in DC, and just try to create a repository of information that is easily accessible for people all across the country.
You mentioned the webinars, and I want to put an explicit plug in for the Municipal Golf Network, which I guess is the name for that series of webinars that you're doing. And anyone that's listening to the show that's interested in this topic should really check out those webinars. They're really very good. This vision of a repository of information that can help people jumpstart the process, I think, is a great idea. From the conversations I've had with people, by and large, everybody's figuring it out on their own from whole cloth. And the thought of having a model or a series of models that, based on your circumstance, and you said it very nicely, you've got the Cadillac programs and you've got the more modest programs. If there were a range of templates that people could follow, I think that, that might be very helpful. And the work you're doing is really, really important. And I'm so glad to be aware of it, support it, and whatever we could do at Golf Sustainability to help support and advance your efforts will, you got my commitment to do that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's always great to talk to someone who shares the passion about the game and about where the game's heading. I think it's amazing. I think we're trying to change how golf is perceived, because it's not the 1%. It's about everybody else who plays the game because they want to be outside with their friends and family, or just have the mental health break where they're just relaxed. And even though golf is an infuriating game, there's so many ways it can help people, and whether it's playing or through the business of golf, it's great. It's great to talk with someone else who shares that passion.
Yeah. Well, listen, for me, here's when the coin dropped. So I start golf sustainability. I'm learning about the market, and you see these slogans and programs, make golf your thing, and USGA's committed, PGA's committed, and they've got these campaigns, and you go, wow, this is great. But then the reality hits is that these are marketing campaigns that have no real ground level grassroots program in place to really make it happen. And the country club community it's very difficult for them to activate against this because their whole focus is member satisfaction. The for-profit operators that have destination places have a difficult time activating against it because of their need to deliver profit for their shareholders. So the bottom line is it's munis. And munis are going to be the key to broadening access to the game. And it's programs like NLT, it's programs like the Park, it's programs like Cobbs Creek, it's programs like Winter Park that are going to make that happen. And we have to make it happen if we're going to change the image of the game. So, Hey, we've gone on a little longer than you and I originally talked. So thanks for staying on here. I did want to kind of wrap up with a couple of questions that help our audience get to know you a little better, Will. And your drive and motivation has clearly come across here, but I want to ask you directly, what drives you?
I think I referenced at the top, I am so fortunate that I have made my career in this game. I've traveled all over the world with great people. I've seen the best golf courses in the world. But more importantly, the friendships I've made through the game are the deepest and most meaningful relationships that I have besides my family. And so I'm an evangelist for the game of golf. I really am. And so, helping other people get into the game is really what drives me. Yeah. And Mike and I, we met in landscape architecture school, and we both have masters in landscape architecture, although I've never been a licensed landscape architect. But I believe in the power of places. And I think it's vital that well-designed, well-thought-out places, the power that they can have to bring people together. And so the great thing about National Links Trust is it combines my passion for golf and what golf can do for people with placemaking, trying to create these incredible places in our community that people from all walks of life can come and enjoy themselves and bump into each other and create these relationships. Like that's what I'm passionate about.
Cool. Well, last question. You've mentioned you've played all over the world, and I hope to broaden my list of courses played as being part of the Outpost Club. So you've got one last round of golf to play. Where do you play your final round of golf?
I bet you could guess. Knowing my passion, I bet you could guess.
Oh, I'm not even going to try to guess.
You're not going to try? I mean, it's got to be the old course, the original Muni, right? It's got to be. From a golf perspective, it is as nerdy as it comes, right? The angles and all the strategy and all that sort of stuff is incredible. Is it the most beautiful golf course? No. But from a golf strategy perspective, it is as good as it gets, full stop. But really, it's about the place, right? It's about playing out of the town and then back into the town, even out on the golf course, the way the holes are intermingled, the community sense that you get out on the golf course, and then coming in and finishing in town with people leaning against the rail behind the 18th green and along the side of the 18th green, and you hear languages from all over the world. There's nothing better. And so my last round, I've been fortunate to play a lot of places, and there are certainly more beautiful places, but the old courses, it would be it for me.
Yeah, fantastic. My wife and I played the old course on our 38th wedding anniversary, and it was a magical day that, I will never forget. And I then came to learn that I had a chance to interview the superintendent of the old course for the show, and it was interesting. I mean, they are the original model because it's a trust that owns it. All the profits are funneled back into community programs. I think the old course is closed on Sundays, and the community uses it as for picnics, and it's a park. And the difference is, I believe it's got very strong backing by the RNA, which says to me part of what's missing here in the States is we really need greater support from both the USGA and the PGA for the Muni movement.
I'm not going to wade too deep into that, but
yeah, no, you can't. You
I will
shouldn't.
say, like people ask, why are you called National Links Trust? And it's there's no doubt that we were thinking of the St. Andrews Links Trust. I mean that is what it is, and I mean, we are the nation's capital here in DC, and so it works on that level. But also, again, like we want to be the organization that is the champion for affordable, accessible municipal golf in our country, and that's why we're called the National Links Trust, and St. Andrews is an incredible example, and part of the reason why I'd want to have my final round there.
That's wonderful. Well, look, I can't think of a better way to wrap up the conversation. And God willing, I'd love nothing more than to see that vision and that aspiration become a reality. Will, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. Great talking to you.
Oh, and thanks for the book recommendation. When we had dinner at the closing Outpost Club dinner at Marion, I asked, hey, I want to start learning about golf course architecture. What's the first book I should read? And you said Doak's Anatomy of a Golf Course. I read it over the holidays. I will never look at a golf course the same way again.
Yeah,
that was a great tip, and I appreciate it.
It's a heck of a book, and I'd recommend it to anyone who's got even an inkling of interest in golf course architecture.
It's great. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining me on what's been a very, very enjoyable and fascinating conversation about one of the most important topics in our game, and that's how municipal golf can be the vehicle for broadening access to the game and helping change the image of the game. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends and colleagues about it, and look forward to having you on the next episode of the Golf Sustainability Podcast as an important part of our community. Thanks very much.